Thanks for coming today, guys. This is a new lecture for me, although obviously I've been working in the field for a long time, so it's something that I've talked about a lot, but this particular lecture and this presentation is new. So if I say something wrong that doesn't agree with that, don't be quiet about it. You should let me know immediately, and maybe I'll learn from positive punishment. If it's harsh enough, okay? It'll really get a zinger in there if I mess something up. We'll feel better about it. So this new lecture series that I've been doing has been inspired by one of my mentors, Stuart Hilliard, Dr. Stuart Hilliard, and Michael Ellis, who's an older mentor of mine. And through their seminar series called Canology, which I encourage everybody to look up and check out if you haven't yet. The point of my lecture series is really to go through this is a bit of a spread out timeline since we're only doing it once a month, but all of the basic criteria that a person should know in order to be a trainer or in order to even train one dog, right? I also would love to know if you feel like I need, there are things that I could add that would be helpful. Feel free to reach out to me afterward or let me know what you think we could change about it. Okay. So this is a key terms list. I actually have them for everybody. So if you want to take one and pass them on, we'll be using these words a lot and make sure that everybody's up to speed on exactly the way that I'm using them, as well as if you didn't bring anything to take notes on, you can scratch on that. So like I said, we're going to go through these words real quick, but we're going to hit them over and over again throughout this presentation. So reinforcement, anything that is reinforcement increases the likelihood of a behavior in the future. Okay, we're going to really hammer down on the contingency square in a couple slides, but punishment decreases the likelihood of behavior. Okay, so anytime you see the word reinforcement, it's going to increase likelihood. Anytime you see the word punishment, decrease likelihood. All right, positive, anything that's referred to as positive when we're talking about operant and instrumental conditioning or B.F. Skinner, he's talking about the addition of something. Something is added to the situation. All right, I try to be careful about putting the plus sign anywhere that we use that, just to help people think about it, so that they're not getting anything confused in there. Negative is when something is removed from the situation. So again, I use that minus sign wherever I can. Salience is a word that that really resonates with me in dog training. Specifically, it's how relevant the reinforcement or punishment is to the subject or to the creature that we're talking about. Here it's a dog. But realistically, it's how good is your reward, how much does your dog care about the punishment, and which ones are more valuable or which ones are more caustic to your dog, or what punishment is more aversive. And that becomes very, very important at any time you're trying to really manipulate drives, because you get into kind of fundamentals of, you're weighing the dog's likelihood of doing something versus not doing something. And that all comes down to what's more or less valuable to the dog, right? A reward is an appetitive consequence. You'll hear me use the word consequence a lot too. I probably could have used the word consequence in here, but consequence in most language has a negative connotation. People think that consequence is bad, but when we're talking about it here, it just means the outcome, right? And it could be either an appetitive consequence or it could be an aversive consequence, something that the creature doesn't like. Aversive, unpleasant stimuli, okay? So I've got a picture of a pinch collar there just to help remind that, okay? So if something is aversive, typical that that it's unpleasant and they don't like it, right? This is our SAT word bonus. Does anybody know that word without looking it up? Doesn't count if you looked it up, Emily.
I'm making notes.
Manipulandum, okay? Does anybody know what that word is off the top of their head? No?
I'd say that I looked it up.
You looked it up. All right, not her. Okay. Anybody want to guess what it means? Pei Ting?
I see
Okay, all right. So manipulandum is the equipment that a subject of one of these studies has to interact with in order to get a reward or to in order to turn off punishment or turn off something aversive, right? So it is, for example, in a Skinner box, it could be the lever that the rat's pressing, or it could be the block that the animal has to move, or it could be something like that. So if you are reading studies, or if you are watching old video of Skinner experiments in the 50s, right, then you may hear this, or you might see it written down, and that's all it is. Or if you just want to, ask somebody or impress somebody at a dinner party, throw that word out there. Paraphernalia might be another. You could use the word paraphernalia probably, and it's probably similar. Okay, good on the words? Yeah, nobody said yes. Yeah, yes. Nodding. Okay, we're good. All right. So B.F. Skinner, we got to pay homage to B.F. Skinner. He was a pretty interesting guy in his early childhood. He did things like, even as early as like 6 or 7 years old, he was like taking apart he took apart like a model train set or whatever and created a completely different like item of like mechanism of like lifting and lowering something automatically, and like so pretty interesting individual that probably had was probably a bit neurodivergent is what they would probably call it nowadays. And one of the books, I believe his first book, he published a lot of books, published 21 books, I believe, like tons and tons of articles, tons of different studies that he did. And he was active doing studies for something like, I think 50 years. He was at Harvard, a professor at Harvard for, I believe, 35 years. So really incredible, and the father of modern behaviorism. And what we'll see later in the presentation, we'll look a little bit at the Skinner box. The Skinner box is kind of named for him, which is basically what in our world, we refer to it as like a training classroom, which is basically a place that's devoid of novel distractions. There's nothing going on in there. And so what they would do is they'd condition a rat or a mouse or a dog or all sorts of different creatures they were doing to be comfortable in this box. And then they would put some piece of manipulandum in the box and teach them how to interact with it. So through that, we'll eventually get to shaping. Right? Shaping is sort of the basis of a lot of modern dog training, and it's what allows us to create really, really complex behaviors, and you can add layers upon layers upon layers. If you ever see ABCs, if people are talking about operant conditioning, talking about the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. Right? So it's like a primer. What happened? How do they know what happens? The actual behavior that the dog does. So this could be, for example, a command. The antecedent could be a command or a cue that you give a dog. The dog does the behavior or doesn't do the behavior, and then they get a consequence based on that. It could be an appetitive consequence. Here's a piece of food. You did a good job. It could be an aversive consequence. You did not do it properly. You're getting some kind of punishment, right? So a couple of really short videos that just will show a little bit of the stuff that he was doing, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, which is pretty awesome. And you all, I don't know if you guys have seen this. Has anybody seen Skinner type experiments before? So something to note is these are pigeons, okay? And the thing that he liked about pigeons was that they exhibit a lot of behaviors. So they'll just naturally exhibit behaviors. They'll walk around and they'll peck stuff. They'll turn around in circles. They'll stand on one foot. They'll step up on things. So do stuff that then you could provide a consequence for, good or bad, and start to shape their behavior. The other thing that he did was he kept these pigeons at 65% of their body weight. So these pigeons were hungry all the time. So they were always willing to work for this thing, for an appetitive outcome. It's one of the things that is oftentimes forgotten, And then oftentimes overlooked when people talk about positive reinforcement and positive reinforcement only in dog training or fear-free dog training or a lot of different things like that. And they forget or they gloss over the fact that in order to do it in the way that Skinner was doing it, you have to basically keep the animal in like a state of like borderline starvation / discomfort through hunger, right? And we'll continue to talk about that as well. But I was demoing this presentation on my wife last night. She was maybe willing or unwilling to hear about it. But I said, would you rather, just like really simply put, and this is something to think about as a dog trainer, as somebody who's going to manipulate their dogs and things like that, would you rather me tell you that you're wrong every once in a while or not feed you until you're right? It's like, tell me I'm wrong every once in a while. Give me the food. Like, I'd rather just have the food, please. Don't starve me, right? So anyway, all right. So this one, he talks.
And we're going to try another pigeon now, and I will try to pick out some particular pattern of behavior and make it a more frequent part of the repertoire of the bird. Very fine. This bird has been already conditioned to eat when the magazine sounds and the light flashes. Now we'll just watch its behavior a bit. It's not doing anything in particular, you see, but I'm going to try to get it to do something. Suppose I shape up the behavior of making a complete turn. What I do is simply let it then to wait for some part of that behavior. There's more of it, you see. You see the effect is instantaneous. I'm waiting for it to turn counterclockwise now. And then I reinforce that movement. And I wait for a more pronounced movement than that. It's got to be more than that. There we go, all the way around.
So the phrase that we use to describe the style of training that is, mostly, is successive approximation. So what we're looking for in shaping that behavior is something a little bit closer, each repetition to our final goal, which is a full turn. So if I can get my dog to do something, oftentimes the first piece is we're giving them more help, and then we usually retract help slowly. But an example of shaping is you can shape a purely positive reinforcement retrieve, for example. What I've done with that in the past with puppies is as soon as they're interacting with the item, the retrieve item, you can reward them for looking at the retrieve item, right? So the little puppy looks at the retrieve item, click reward. The little puppy looks at the retrieve item, click reward. Slowly over time you say, I need a little bit more from you. And now they get closer to it, or they touch it with their nose, and then eventually they touch it with their mouth. And now I'm not giving any rewards, I'm not clicking, unless the dog is putting their mouth on the item, right? And eventually I'm getting it to the dog where he's actually picking it up, looking at me, picking it up, bringing it closer to me, picking it up, bringing it straight back, holding it, right? And so people can do that. It just takes a little bit of time, right? And you can of course there's other ways to build retrieves, and they're very, very different. But anyway, that's one of the ways, successively approximating like kind of what you want and keep going down the path until you get it. This is an example of a more complex behavior, and you'll kind of have to like bear with it because there's no talking, so it's a little bit more boring. But you can also see that there were other things that they had taught this animal to do prior to this experiment or prior to this study. So and I think that's some kind of food item that is being held up above. It seems to be like, I don't know, something.
Miniature banana.
Yeah, it could be a miniature banana. Could be a Pringle. Probably not in the 50s, but so But the bird obviously knows what it is and wants it, right? He knows what this thing is. He's done this before. He's stepped up on this before. He's like, the other interesting fact here is that this bird probably has his wings clipped really, really short and may even have in some other way been removed the ability for him to fly. So there he goes. Boom. Got it. So pretty cool. And so like what that shows us is that if you show the animal something, you teach the animal something in a different context, they can actually take information that they've learned in a prior context and bring it into a new problem and solve that problem. That's what's cool about it, right? It is education. It's not just like rote memorization or something. They really do understand how to manipulate their environment better based on prior learning. That's cool. There you go. Okay. That dang contingency square. So everybody's seen this. Hopefully you've spent some time looking at this or thinking about it. My goal is so that if you can't currently, that at some point very soon, you've connected all the dots and that you have the ability to recall each one of these things at any time, whenever you want, right? What I like to do and what I think is a great training mechanism is think about this contingency square at any time in your life when anything is happening right in front of you and try to put whatever it is in different squares. Think about, was it punishment that created that behavior? Was it some kind of reinforcement that created that behavior? In what way? Or what is going to reinforce that behavior in the future? And that's every behavior, from human behavior to even corporate behavior or dog behavior, animal behavior that you see on the street. So anything up here, okay, reinforcement. Reinforcement increases the likelihood of behavior, right? Punishment decreases the likelihood of behavior. So you've got punishment and you've got reinforcement. So if you think about those straight up, for starters, that's going to benefit you a lot. Punishment and reinforcement, right? Now, the stimulus is either being added or taken away. So that's your plus and your minus, all right? Positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Negative is your minus, plus R. When you see these listed, sometimes they put the P and then plus on that side, or sometimes it's plus P, but you'll see people talking about that you see it written in Facebook posts and groups, and you'll see it written in different sorts of text on screen when you're watching different training videos and things like that. So understanding them and how they're going to decrease or increase the likelihood of a behavior is really important. So who's seen this picture before? Everybody? Anybody not seen it before? Todd?
1980.
In 1980, okay. Psych 101? Okay, got it. Psych 101. And you were paying a lot of attention, right? There were no girls in that class. There were girls in that class. Okay, yeah. You were paying a lot of attention, just not to the contingency square. Got it. Okay, so your own contingency square. How could you increase the likelihood of, okay, anyway. All right, so it took me a while to figure out which quadrant to put these things in. So apparently there's a right way, and this is the right way. So when you are looking at it and you draw a square, like which side should be which, you're gonna put positive on the left, you're gonna put reinforcement on the top, and you're gonna put punishment on the bottom, right? And this is the way that it's done in the behavioral science community, right? So if you want to be able to read those studies, you want to be able to look at that stuff and speak in the same way that they are, this is how they're writing it, okay? Now, we're going to go through these individually, each one, but in terms of the actual square and the positions of the of reinforcement and punishment, does it seem like it makes sense to everybody? Yeah? Okay. So this is something else that is very, very valuable and comes into play when you're talking about actual dog training. Now, this is something that I learned from reading this book, Accelerated Learning. Okay? Accelerated learning, it's spelled funny, E-X-C-E-L. I highly suggest that anybody who is really interested in dog training, who wants to be a dog trainer, or who is just training their own dog, or somebody who just likes to read, read it. Let's see. It contains the foundational elements that I believe that everybody needs to know to really train well, and it's pretty concise. There are some people that believe that the second half of the book gets a little wordy, and that might be true, but there's a lot of it's really densely packed full of information. So reinforcement schedules. Now, reinforcement schedules were also a big Skinner development, and what a reinforcement schedule is, how often should we reward the dog? How often should we punish the dog for a thing they've done wrong, right? And this is, one thing to remember is that in a Skinner box, this is not the real world. So something to really keep in mind is that the stuff that you read about and the stuff that it may not always perfectly line up with what you've seen and experienced in the real world. There's a little bit more magic or fairy dust or whatever it is that happens in the real world, and we rarely have as much control as they had in that situation, where the animal was very hungry, they were in a very small area, there was only one thing for them to interact with, right? But anyway, they're able to find out optimum reinforcement schedules, meaning how could you create an addict, or how could you, for a particular behavior, how do you make them do a behavior habitually, right? And there are many, many ways to do it. In terms of reinforcement schedules, you could do hours of lecture on just reinforcement schedules. What I wanted to show here is how it's written. So the way that it's written here, the N stands for non-reinforced. The R stands for reinforced, right? You could sub out the R for P if you were doing some kind of punishment, I imagine. But in most of the situations that they're talking about in the literature, they're talking about reinforcement. So non-reinforced, reinforced, non-reinforced, reinforced, non-reinforced, reinforced. That's what they call a fixed schedule. It doesn't change. Every other rep, you get reinforced, right? Every single time. Variable reinforcement, it's variable. The dog's not sure, or the creature in subject is not sure when the reward will come or when the reinforcement will come. And depending on where you are in reinforcement, that can create a really good anticipatory behavior, which is similar to, people oftentimes talk about the similarities in like gambling addicts and things like that, right? So because you never know when it's going to win, right? And then every once in a while they get reinforced, and then for some reason, every rep they think they're going to be reinforced. What you see in a fixed ratio, right? Oftentimes, if you have a fixed ratio that goes non-reinforced, reinforced, non-reinforced, reinforced, what you'll sometimes see is after the reinforced rep, the next one will dip down. And so the next one will be slightly less, there will be less alacrity, less excitement in the next rep. That's because they realize that they're not going to get another reward, right? If you continue in that pattern. There's also other types of ratio schedule would be constant reinforcement, meaning every single rep is rewarded. And then there are other people like Bob Bailey, for example, who I put on here. Bob Bailey, who's an incredible animal trainer, trained animals for the CIA, trained cats for the CIA to carry like listening devices into like the Russian mob and stuff like that. Really cool. He says you never get off constant reinforcement. So what he means by that is that you just increase the complexity of the behavior until it gets the reward, but the animal's just doing a more complex behavior for one reward. It's not like an unrewarded rep. Right? And he was doing everything with manipulation of what we would consider to be positive reinforcement for the most part. And he used all sorts of things for that positive reinforcement, including, including dolphins were coming back. He had dolphins that were wearing harnesses that were attaching magnetic homing beacons to submarines and ships out in the ocean, and then coming all the way back into the harbor. And they were doing that to be back with their sexual partner. It's like, so they could separate them for some period of time, but they would always want to come back in. So obviously, like, they're not going to probably do that for a fish or two, but he would do that to come back to their partner, which is interesting. All right, an interval schedule is based on time. So ratio is based on how many repetitions of trials, right? And interval schedule is based on time. So what you'll see for that, again, there's fixed and variable. Fixed being, every 10 seconds, the animal has an opportunity to access the reward again. So he could hit that, but he could hit it 10 times. Inside of 10 seconds, only one reward. After 10 seconds, he hits it again, boom, first rep is reinforced again. You'll see differences based on, you can try these out with your dogs. Like, this is fun stuff to try out and pretty easy to try out. You'd be like, cool, I got a treat pouch, or I got my ball, or I got whatever, and I go out. How many reps can I do in a row where the dog still wants to do the behavior and then get the reward? And can I do it in a different way? Can I do it in a different pattern and get even more alacrity, right? More excitement. Alacrity, another SAT word. Everybody that works for me knows what it is. Anybody that doesn't work for me know what alacrity is? No? Okay. Alacrity means excited exuberance. So it's what I like to see. What I like to see in a dog. It's like my favorite thing to see in a dog. So we labeled one of our training fields alacrity. So that I can just talk about it every time we go there. Cool. Skinner box, fun. And this particular Skinner box has all sorts of fun stuff going on. It's got a shock generator with an electric grid on the floor. It's got a lever, lights that can tell the animal, hey, this thing's about to happen, this thing's about to happen, and to create anticipatory learning. It's got a little speaker in it so that they can hear tones and this and that. And before you used it, they would condition the animal to be in the box and be comfortable, or to utilize the thing. So they put them in there and they put food out. Put them in there, put food out. Put them in there, put food out. And these poor rats, so you get like, terrible stuff happens to rats and experiments in general, but behavioral science, probably, I don't know what's worse, honestly, being like tortured in your head and messed with like that, or probably like the physical stuff that they do to animals in terms of like testing different like, shampoo that burns their skin or something like that. I don't know what's worse, but anyway, fun. Yay. Science. Questions about reinforcement schedules? We can talk about it if you want, any of this stuff.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah.
Interval schedules, like what's an example of when you want to use, we're here for dog training.
Mm-hmm.
Fixed versus variable.
So in interval, I think that you would probably, I don't use it very much, right? So in terms of something that would, have you ever heard of a manners minder?
No.
No? Okay, so a manners minder is a remote feeding system that drops one piece of kibble or one treat or whatever at a certain interval of time. And people utilize them for crate training and for certain dogs that have like mild separation anxiety or like mild crate anxiety. And you can set them up so that they either like you could set it on like the side and it can have like a little ramp where the food kind of drops in there, or people put it on top of like a wire crate and it'll drop in at a certain interval. That would be something. Another would be maybe you could potentially just come up with a time, and I've often done like bed stays based on times, right? Where I said, at the end of this song, I'll let my dog off, right? Something like that. But you could also say, I'm gonna reward the dog every 30 seconds and like see how many reps that gets me before the dog fails, right? So you could come up with things like that, or you're mostly doing variable most of the time. And so when I'm training a dog, for example, on a bed stay, I'm often waiting for the dog to give me the behavior that I'm going to go reward, right? I'm oftentimes waiting to see if they're settled in. And if they're settled in and a distraction happens in the environment, I'm going to say, good, go back over and reward. So I'm less frequently going to do it on a totally random schedule. It's really going to be, the dog may perceive it as random. I would say that most of the time it's going to be variable versus fixed, right? There are people and there's places where people get into trouble with fixed on ratio and fixed on interval because the dog predicts the amount of time that's going to be needed before they get the reward. So you see, like, say for example, a bark and hold with in IPO or IGP Schutzhund, right, where the dog is barking at the decoy, bark, 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 bark. One of the things that so that's a number of behaviors: non-reinforced, 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 sleeve, right, and the dog gets to bite the sleeve. You're familiar with that, right? Yeah. So if you come up with a number and you're like, he's got to bark 5 times and then he gets the sleeve. Well, what if in the trial, he's not going to get it after 5? It might be 15. It might be 12. It might be 7. It might be, right? And so then if your dog knows I do it 5 times, it's not as if, I don't necessarily think the dog is counting per se, that he can do addition and subtraction, but he does know, oh, I think I've done it about this many times. And you'll see oftentimes people do things in predictable sets, especially in sports, that require you to do a pattern. So people are building the pattern their dog's entire life. And the dog's like, I know in my BH routine for Schutzhund, I'm gonna walk 20 paces and then I get a down, or 20 paces and then they switch to a heel. And in some places, the patterning can be helpful to the dog. In other places, it'll hurt you, right? Make sense? Cool. Okay, so we got to positive reinforcement. So individually, each one of these things has with it a feeling, right? So positive reinforcement, the addition, plus sign of a pleasant stimulus that makes the preceding behavior more likely to continue in the future. And this is a pleasant consequence, right? So something that makes my dog feel good. And that can be any and all things that make my dog feel good, whether I created them or the environment created them. That has no relevance, who was creating them. If the dog's being positively reinforced, that's what it is, right? So just in a general way, we've got some things that, like, we know that we're adding to the dog's environment personally, and then sometimes the environment is adding them to the dog's environment, right? So squirrels, sticks, water, things like that. Squirrels, bunnies, all right? These are all things that exist in the environment that are gonna be highly, highly, highly reinforcing and salient to the dog, right? You'll find that animals that are predisposed to predatory behavior, animals that are predisposed to predatory behavior, that like to chase and catch things, are almost completely focused on their predatory behavior, and to a point where literally no other reward is as valuable, right? So you basically, it's very difficult to positively reinforce something like, for example, a chasing behavior. If you want to reinforce a recall away from a chasing behavior, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to get that accomplished, because the chasing behavior is the most valuable thing to the dog that there ever was, that ever existed. Anything else?
But I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the chasing, which
Yep.
is true. How do you get the recall?
How do you get the recall?
From something that has higher value than you, no matter what.
Yeah. So who's going nuts right now? Sorry.
Okay.
There's so that is the crux of all dog training. Can you answer the most important question in all of dog training? If my dog doesn't want to do what I want, how do I get my dog to do it? Okay.
Let's pretend that we forgot to put the long lead on.
Right. Yes.
And
All right. So number one thing is if your dog has not experienced that thing to which they are predisposed to, you have a much higher likelihood of changing their heading. So, for example, something that if my dog has not chased birds or squirrels or things like that, and I've been really, really good about it, and every time he saw a squirrel or a bird, he was on leash, and I was able to redirect him, get his attention because I was able to cap him and stop him from doing those things, I have a much higher likelihood of being successful, right? Now, if I'm there's other behaviors like that particular breeds of dogs are predisposed to. Like, say we're talking about dog aggression, right? Some dogs that are predisposed to dog aggression, whether it's by breed or just a random genetic occurrence or whatever it is, right? If those dogs never get in a fight, they never have their first fight, you got a good chance to keep them focused on you around other dogs. Your dog's been in a fight, your dog's acted out on that thing, your dog has chased a deer already, your dog has caught a squirrel, right? The holy grail, okay? Then you have a really low likelihood of convincing your dog that that's not the most fun thing in the world. And dogs that are predisposed to dog aggression, in a lot of situations, I believe that, they like it. That's like, it's like some people like fighting, right? That dogs like fighting too. There's certain dogs that's just, hey man, that's how we get down. And you'll see them with their mouth full of, another dog's leg and they're wagging their tail. And you pull them off and they're just as happy, right? So, it depends on what the dog in question is predisposed to first, right? And then the next step is putting them in very controlled situations to make them think that I have control of those things in the environment. So I bring something into the environment that is, slightly more salient than the thing that I have, but I have control of it 100%. So for example, I have a helper who has a higher value reward than me, and they're showing the dog the food, they don't give it to him. I call the dog back, my helper stands up, completely turns off all of their attention to the dog, and now the dog has only one option to get reinforcement, and that's to come back to me, right? So I can control the environment in a way that makes the dog think that the only thing available to him is me, right? And that manipulation of the environment is the way to success, in my opinion, right? Now, as we get further down, the way to proof that predatory behavior or to proof that recall under distraction, things like that, is by using pressure, and pressure in negative reinforcement and pressure in positive punishment, right? And those are, methods that you could use to, regardless of how many times your dog has chased a thing or this or that, you could probably still get it sorted out, right? If you were, almost always, if you were really good at using those tools. Right. All right, negative reinforcement. I put some funny ones on here that we can talk about that you might be like, why is that on here? Okay. So negative reinforcement, the removal, minus sign, of an unpleasant stimulus that makes the preceding behavior more likely to continue in the future. This is a pleasant consequence. The removal of an aversive stimulus. So people oftentimes think of negative reinforcement as being bad, and they think of negative reinforcement as being, especially our clients or people that are really, less informed about this stuff. They really haven't looked into it. The kind of colloquial knowledge and usage of the word negative reinforcement, people are oftentimes thinking of positive punishment. They say negative reinforcement, but what they mean is positive punishment. Negative reinforcement is the removal of something unpleasant, right? In order to make the dog, in our situation, have a pleasant feeling, all right? So the reason why I put some of these things in here that I have are because they're funny, and they're not funny like haha, but funny like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about it that way. So here's a slip lead on a dog. Slip leads are probably, they're probably one of the oldest forms of negative reinforcement that people have been using for quite a long time and use it really, really well, right? When the dog does something to alleviate the pressure on the collar, I'm pulling the dog up. Say you're pulling the dog into a sit. When the dog sits, I release the pressure. The release of the pressure makes the dog feel good, therefore reinforcing the previous behavior, which was the sit. So pressure on, dog sits, release pressure, right? Or pressure on, dog recalls, release pressure. Now, so slip lead, excellent way to do that. People may not think about this very often, but when you're just holding your dog by the neck, you're holding him by the collar like that. It's just, when you let him go, whatever you let him go at, that thing so if he let him go and he goes chasing across the yard at a bunny, or he goes this or that, or you just let him go out of the car, or you let him, whatever it is, that is a moment of reinforcement as soon as you release the pressure right there. So, hey, I'm finding this to be unpleasant. I can't go where I want. He's holding my neck. Now I've been released. Reinforcement. Boom. Every time. What's that? Cam. Force fetch. Force retrieve. Ear pinch. Okay? So he's got the dog's ear, and he's holding it over the collar. He's pinching with his thumb here. So do that too much and you'll end up like Mike, right? You get their ears all banged up. So that's a bad joke, sorry. Okay. I've never seen a dog with a hematoma on their ear from an ear pinch. So that's an old school way of teaching a fetch. What they would do, they put them on a table, and they take the ear, they pinch it over top of the collar. The dog says, ow, ah. They put the thing in their mouth, right? As soon as the dog opens their mouth and has the toy inside their mouth, the bumper in this case, they release the pressure off the ear. The removal of the pressure reinforces the thing that the dog did, open their mouth and grab the toy, right? So it's unpleasant. It's unpleasant for the dog. In fact, most trainers don't like it, but it's still used pervasively throughout the gun dog training community as well as the service dog training community. So almost all assistance dogs and any dog that has to pick something up, bring it. Almost all those dogs are doing some kind of forced retrieve or forced fetch. So when I went to CCI, which is Canine Companions for Independence, for a tour and a weekend kind of retreat, that is probably one of the premier locations for assistance dogs, for hearing assistance dogs, for physical mobility dogs. Incredible, incredible place. That is exclusively how they teach the fetch, right? So it's still being used pervasively throughout many, many, many things that people think of as really well-trained dogs and whatever. And for the most part, the dogs at CCI, for example, every single other thing that they do is for kibble. Every single other behavior is for kibble. So they're doing every behavior. And of course, these are selected dogs that they have a breeding program of Goldadors, right? Golden Labs that they mix. And if the dog isn't food motivated enough to perform most of their behaviors for food, they're going to wash them, and that dog's not going to be part of the program anyway, right? It's very effective. A lot of the dogs that you see that are hunting, they've gone through that training, and the people who are really good at it it's pretty astounding how quickly they can get a result. Here's a dog in the shade. Dog got out of the sun, right? The sun was unpleasant. I was hot. I went in the shade. Okay, I've been negatively reinforced now to do a behavior like that, to go over here go on the cool tile, get out of the sunshine, lay down again over here, right? This is stuff that's happening all the time with our dogs. Now this one this would be controversial, right? And the question here is, these are street dogs, okay? They're dogs that are living outdoors, unrestrained, okay? So just dogs that are, homeless dogs or street dogs. They're not homeless dogs. Their home is wherever they are. and somebody's put food down on the floor there, food down on the street. And the question is, at what point does not eating become uncomfortable? How long can you not eat before it's uncomfortable? How hungry do you have to be before it hurts? And if it hurts, and if it's unpleasant, then taking away that unpleasantness would potentially be negative reinforcement versus positive reinforcement. So if what I'm doing is taking away the pain of hunger that the animal has, that in a way is negative reinforcement as well. And it comes full circle, and we'd be like, well, you're adding something to the environment or whatever, but the dog is, that part of the dog, it's being taken away. I'm taking away the thing that is unpleasant. I'm taking away your pain, right? So, yeah, remember this. It's pleasant. Everybody thinks it's bad. It's pleasant, right? That's the goal of negative reinforcement, is to let the animal know that this is the thing that you can find. This is how you can find your way to a pleasant outcome. Cool? Questions? People might not agree with me about that, so, you know. Okay, positive punishment. The addition plus of an unpleasant stimulus that makes the preceding behavior less likely to continue in the future, an unpleasant consequence. So the unpleasant consequence, the addition of something aversive, all right? Now, that is something that is aversive to the dog, right? And the dog could perceive all sorts of things as aversive that you or I may not think are that aversive, right? Or we could think something is really bad and you would not want it done to you. And the dog's like, whatever. Like, yeah, I don't care, right? So I've just got a bunch of pictures up here of all sorts of stuff. We've got spray bottle, pinch collar, halty, somebody screaming at a dog, electricity, or thunder, okay? Could be something scary, but it could be electricity, like an electronic collar or something like that. And I threw some extra things in there, threw the harness and the halty in there to prove my point, or to talk about my point, which is if the dog doesn't like it, it's aversive, right? So if the dog doesn't like how the harness feels, or he doesn't like slamming it, even if he's wearing this or that, he's not gonna like slamming into the end of the leash, right? So, and if he stops slamming into the end of the leash because he's wearing a head harness, then the reason why that worked is because it was positively punished. It ran into the end of the leash, it yanked its head. I don't like that. I will stop running into the end of the leash when I have my head harness on, right? Spray bottle could be, you'll find that some dogs just end up really wet and running around and they don't care, right? Every once in a while though, you'll find a dog that like it works perfectly for in somebody's home for like jumping or barking or something like that. And for those things, I mean, it is incredible when it actually works. And you're like, oh yeah, all I have to do is just like grab the spray bottle or whatever, you know, people will say something like that. Or when I have a friend over, I just take my spray bottle, I go to the front door, I open it. If they start barking, I spray it and they stop. Cool. If it works, it works. Awesome. If your dog does not perceive it to be aversive, it is not positive punishment. You could be yelling at your dog all day long, and if your dog does not care because he is not, for some reason, he's not sensitive in that way, it is not aversive and it is not positive punishment, right? Again, people will think that we're talking about positive punishment. Oftentimes, if you say negative reinforcement, the picture that will come up in their mind is positive punishment. And we have to help those people, whether we're talking to people in our personal life, professional life, or other dog trainers, whatever, that are confused, right? Or if we're just trying to educate people. Yeah, okay. Good? Yeah, fun? All right. Negative punishment, the removal of a pleasant stimulus that makes the preceding behavior less likely to continue in the future, an unpleasant consequence. The removal of the pleasant stimulus. All right. So again, I had to find some kind of creative ones here because there were, it's kind of hard to show like either it's hard to show taking something away from the dog that, and I couldn't find a lot of pictures for it. So I had to come up with some kind of creative ones. So this one, I think the person's actually giving the dog the bowl, but I just pretended they're taking it away from them. So yeah, this is, so in this situation, say I'm teaching my dog to sit and to be patient while I'm putting their food bowl down. I go to put my dog's food bowl down. I'm bending down. The dog kind of jumps up and surges at the food bowl. I pull it back away. Taking away the thing that the dog wants in order to punish them for it. Frustrated. They go back and they sit down again. They jump for it. Nope, I take it away again. And it is punishment. It is punishment. And the animal will perceive it as very, very aversive. You can put the dog in a situation where they want the thing so badly, imagine that street dog a couple slides ago, that they want the thing so badly that saying you can't have it will drive cortisol, or a stress hormone that they measure in these cases sometimes, drive cortisol higher than you'll see it in punishment-based studies where they're yanking or shocking or whatever. Interestingly, the way that I tell people that specifically is like, have you ever seen, imagine that you're walking into an ice cream shop and I'm walking in there, I have a 3.5-year-old. Imagine I'm walking in there with poor little Leo and Leo says something, he says something mean or he kicks me or does something like that. And I say, oh, we're not going in, no ice cream. And we leave, right? Now, imagine the like distraught 3.5-year-old that would occur at that moment, right? And that would most likely be much more aversive than, for example, if he like fell down and hurt himself, right? He would be upset about that. I'm telling you, he'd be upset about that. That would upset him so much that potentially for hours, right? And so you say, well, man, but you know what he's not going to do next time is like, kick my foot or yank his hand out of my hand, or say we got out of the truck and he's like tries to take off across the parking lot and he's got to hold my hand. He didn't hold my hand. We're getting back in the truck. We're not going to get ice cream, dude. Big correction. That's a big, big punishment. And hopefully your goal there next time gets out of the car, grabs your hand. We can walk safely across the parking lot. Okay. So that's why I put that there. But it can be quite salient to take away something that the dog perceives as theirs or that they're expecting to get. We have an expectation of the ball. Here's the ball. You want the ball? You really want it? Okay, sit. The dog sits. Nice. You get the ball. The dog doesn't sit. You don't get it. It's not yours. Do something for me, right? And you'll see a dog, right? Whining, stepping around. They get just like, they're distraught over it. Oh my God, you took the toy away. This is terrible. Oh my God, I can't believe you took the toy away from me. Why? Okay. Taking away a video game or something like that. Again, just a picture there. Taking away the bone. Poor sad dog. Oh no. Oh, I just realized that he had a frowny face on. Oh, he looks so bad. This is an interesting one, and we don't utilize this particular picture, which is like turning your back on a dog that's jumping on you. But that's classically what you kind of see if you watch like dog training videos in like the 90s or something like that. That's kind of the stuff that you would see. And you'd see like probably like middle-aged people in minivans that were covered in dog hair, and those were the dog trainers in the 90s, right? So anyway, the idea there is that you're taking away your attention and your affection from the creature, right? This is a thing that I do, is pervasive throughout my puppy training, like really heavily. I use tons of negative punishment in my puppy training. So you jump on me, I stand up, I'm not paying attention to you, right? I'm petting you and you're biting at my fingers, I'm taking them away, I'm not gonna pet you anymore, right? And these are things that are really valuable and can create a change in behavior very quickly, right? And I currently have like 9-week-old puppies at my house, and for their entire life, I've been non-reinforcing jumping and biting. basically. So they have, hopefully they'll have a head start on a lot of other dogs that end up, and when I walk outside, if they jump on me or this or that, they're not getting any affection, they're not getting their food, they're not getting whatever. Same thing when I let them out of their gate, okay? I couldn't find, or I didn't have one of those, but if I take away their option to be like, you can't come out, right? I'm gonna take away your access to the outside or something like that. This one, I was thinking of just like extra ways that you could think think about it in your everyday life, which I think is basically if somebody stole your phone or somebody stole your wallet and like what they're doing, it's not, they're taking away something that you find to be very valuable. And that could be probably would be for every single person in here, the most aversive experience of the day. Either probably your phone. Yeah, I could do without the wallet. Like I can like cancel the credit cards on my phone. I can, you know what I mean? But the phone's gone. I'm like, oh, right? So yeah, that would be terrible. It happened to me, okay? And let's talk about negative punishment, how strong that punishment is. So I was at a concert. I was at a concert, and it was like an outdoors concert. It was huge, thousands of people there. I shouldn't have been there, and my phone got stolen. Right? I got I am aware of the moment that it happened. I got like, it was like kind of like a, team up, like bump you this way. Somebody slides in your pocket, grabs, they saw me put my phone in my pocket and just grabbed it and left. And we heard, this is, probably 10 years ago or something like that. And we heard that they had just a ton stolen at that time, like just like at that particular venue. And I never went back to that venue. Right? And it was offered up to me every year for the next 5 years that we go to this festival, and I was like, no, I'm not going back. It was like that aversive of an experience. And nobody had to hit me. Nobody had to put a collar on me. Nobody had to whack me with anything or choke me or whatever. They had to take something from me that I thought was valuable. But this is the one that people will get most confused about. And it's like, it's the one that you need, you use it all the time anyway, but people just are like, what? Negative pun, and you got to do like the square in their head, right? You should be fluent in this stuff, man. You should be able to bang this stuff out and communicate with other trainers, communicate with other people so clearly. If I, again, not to just dwell on my child, but it is how I think about all of the things that exist in that realm. There's a lot of people here with kids, right? So I think about every category there. And I had, there was a public school teacher here today who was telling me that in, I believe it's Montgomery County schools, they are trying to take away all forms of positive punishment and negative punishment with the kids, meaning that you basically cannot provide any aversive consequence to anything that the kids do. And I was like, that's why we're homeschooling. And she was like, as a public school teacher, I approve that. And I was like, that's not good. That's not good, And that's not the first school teacher that's told me that either. Yeah. Oh, that would be actually, that's an interesting time to talk about. Cam sent me a message last night that is, there was a bill in New Jersey, which I'm sure we're not far off at least getting one of these bills, right? The bill in New Jersey that was basically, the heading of the bill was they want to create a classification for dog trainers that, like, in terms of you have to pass certain tests and you have to have certain certifications or something like that to call yourself a dog trainer, right? That on itself, cool. That's great. I can pass any of the tests, right? I will help them write the tests, okay? The problem is they're not asking me, and they haven't asked people that are really involved in this. It's probably, it's pushed by PETA and things like that, which are not really, they're not dog trainers, right? And so it's an interesting time in dog training, and I don't think that we're going to go the same way that Europe, different parts of Europe and things like that have gone, but there are places in Europe, that you can't, that are, you know, pinch collars are outlawed, electronic collars are outlawed in certain Scandinavian countries, things like that. Now, you know, they are very different countries, and they may, it may be easier to accomplish that legislature over there. I feel like it would be pretty hard here, but it is important that's one of the reasons why I started this lecture series, and to talk about this and to try to educate more people, as many as I could, and to make videos and put it on YouTube, make it available for people so they can understand that there's a lot of nuance to this stuff. And a bad trainer can do plenty of harm without any tools. You know, you don't, you know, the worst damage that was done to dogs for hundreds of years was probably done by feet and hands, and you know, as you know, people starve, and people will do anything regardless of the amount of tools that they have at their disposal to do it. So to me, it seems very unlikely that an abusive trainer would be less abusive if you didn't give him an e-collar. It would probably just be abusive with some other means, you know. Anyway, okay, so I've got a series of pictures here that are about you guys. So I'd like to hear about basically like to hear about what you think, like what are the different types of reinforcement and punishment that could be going on in this particular picture, right? So anybody, don't be shy. Tell me what you think. Employees allowed. Huh? Positive reinforcement with what? What's reinforcing what?
He's chasing the bird. And
So-
he's also wet, so he was playing in the water, having a good time.
So the dog is the subject. Okay. The reward is
If he hits the bird.
which one? Is it the bird or is it the chasing the bird that's the reward?
Chase.
The chase? Okay. So the subject of this is the dog. The experience that he's having is the reinforcement. And this is just a totem of something that the dog is enjoying to chase, right? Okay, what else? What's the bird experiencing?
Fear.
Fear, okay. And where are we going to put that categorically? Positive punishment. He's avoiding positive punishment, like he's avoiding being eaten, right? Via positive punishment. Yeah, it would be quite an event of positive punishment if he got caught. If he's never been caught before, then what is the then how did he learn how to avoid punishment?
Negative reinforcement.
What's being negatively reinforced?
So if he, once he gets away from the dog and is no longer being chased, then that's reinforcing.
Okay. And what is he removing?
The fear of being eaten by the dog.
Yeah, the fear. Yeah. Fear and trepidation of murder. Okay. Yeah. He's like, and when that feeling goes away, that's very reinforcing. Okay. So, I mean, as soon as he gets away from the dog, he's like, nice, I feel good. Okay. Potentially something else. Anything else that you think? What else could the bird be experiencing? That's right. That's what I'm looking for. Atta girl. She said it could be fun for him. Okay. Birds and many other creatures come taunting, messing with other creatures. Maybe he's not in fear at all. He's like, dog's never going to catch me. He's like, I'm going to swoop down there and mess with him. And he's like playing with the dog. He's like having fun. He's like, I'll just fly away from this guy. It's nothing, right? It's like a guy on one of those crotch rockets. It's like, oh, there's the police. And he's just like, boom, takes off. He's not scared. He's like, this is fun. Yeah.
I would say, couldn't it be both? Because
Yeah.
It could start as fear, and then once he realizes he's never going to be caught, it results in that. So.
Absolutely. Yep. So I might be weird, but this is the stuff I think about all the time. So I think it's helpful. All right, we got more pictures. Okay, what do we got going on here? if you can't see, that's a bone. It kind of expanded more than I thought it would. So what I see, I'm looking at it, is this dog was kind of like maybe happily chewing on his bone. He doesn't look too much of a resource. Doesn't seem to be resource guarding too much. I'm not sure if that's a snarl. It could be a snarl, right? He could have a little lip lift there, but he's certainly showing a snarl, right? So he's got a lip lift, and we could imagine that he's got a little guttural tone going on right there. That's what I see just in the picture. So then what kind of, what do we see in terms of like reinforcement there or punishment? Lex?
I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
Reinforcement or punishment? What's happening? Oh, sorry. Who was
If
Todd?
the guy on the left makes a move for the bone, then the guy on the right's gonna positively punish him. Right?
This one?
He's gonna punish him.
Well, he's already eating the bone.
But if, okay, I thought.
Oh, but right.
If he goes toward it.
Yes.
He's saying, if you
Yeah.
do one more move toward my bone, I'm gonna bite you.
Yeah.
So that's positive punishment.
Yep. You're correct. That would be positive punishment. Absolutely.
Could it also be negative reinforcement as well? For
Who?
the dog on the right.
Dog on the
because
right.
He could be hungry,
Mm-hmm.
so he's gonna remove that negative feeling once he gets the bone.
Yeah, potentially. Yep. Yep.
How about if the guy on the left, the dog on the left backing away, that's negative reinforcement because he's giving up what's pleasurable to him. Because he's afraid.
No, negative reinforcement is taking away something that doesn't feel good. So,
Right,
so you're saying if he backs off of it
right.
and then he just lets him take it, then that's negative reinforcement for this guy. He's like, yep, okay, cool. I was scared and now I'm not scared anymore. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. Lex?
Is the dog on the right being, it would be negative punishment if the dog's ignoring him and chewing on the bone, it would decrease the likelihood of him wanting to do that again if the dog continues?
Would certainly, it seems like it would reduce the likelihood of the snarl and the threat display.
Whatever.
Yeah. And if he left, like Todd said, then what?
He's positively punished. Or
He
not
is,
punished,
but then what
he's
happens to him?
positively reinforced.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So he gets positive reinforcement. And he's like, oh, cool, nice. If I snarl at a dog, they'll leave and I get their stuff.
Right.
Bully. Rude. That's what we say in my house. That was rude. Because our dogs will do a little bit of this to each other and not escalate, right? Because they seem to know the hierarchy. So when my tiger pig, Kelsey, will do that to my golden retriever, and the golden retriever she'll just continue chewing it, and she will just straight like walk up and just keep growling like that, and then just take it and growl while she's taking it and just walk away. And the golden retriever will just be like, well, I didn't realize. She literally cannot read body language. My golden retriever has no ability to understand what other dogs are telling her, right? And my pit bull thing, tiger pig, will literally just, she never bites her, but she is a big talker and she's lots of growling and the golden retriever will just be like submissively licking at her and waggling her tail, and you're just like, these guys are just outrageous, right? Cool. All right. Okay, what do we got here? I feel like this is staged, by the way. I don't think it's a real, like those glasses are impossible. There's no way that's a real cop. I mean, maybe, I don't know. What do you think? Show of hands. Real cop? No? Okay.
It's AI.
It's AI. Yeah. What do you say? What?
It's like the Men in Black type of one.
Yeah. All right, Lex, what are you saying?
Positive punishment if you add a fine for whatever that person is doing to decrease the likelihood of whatever that person had been doing. But also we've talked about how adding money to things can be tricky.
Yes, it is. Who else agrees? Positive punishment. Yeah? Everybody? No? Now you're questioning yourself. What happens when you get a ticket, Alexis?
You pay it, you add money.
You add money to the ticket? Give them money. So what happens to you? So what is that? Negative punishment. I have money, I like it. You take my money, that makes me sad. Yeah, negative punishment.
Do the behavior again.
Huh?
So we shouldn't do the behavior again after getting.
It's punishment for sure. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. We don't like it. We don't like it. Yeah, no, we don't like that. But the way that so that part, Alexis, that part that you said it's still correct. The reason why it's positive punishment in the moment and not negative punishment later, which it is later, it's positive punishment in the moment because of the feeling of dismay and sadness that comes with getting pulled over. So then you're in a state which is aversive, basically. The state is like aversively modified. So in the moment, it's positive punishment in a way, right? And then you could also argue that later, it's negative punishment when they actually take the money from you. You know? Anything else happening there? What's happening with the police? Molly?
Meeting his quota.
Meeting his quota. And what's that?
Positive reinforcement.
Yeah, yeah. Or what if he's stressed out and he hasn't met his quota yet? And this is taking away the stress from not meeting his quota.
Negative reinforcement.
Yeah,
It's all of them. The whole quadrant in one picture.
yeah. That's why I picked it.
I'm finally getting it.
Good. That's the point.
Yeah.
Todd?
I was just trying to think, what happens if the guy, the driver is giving him a hard time? Like kind of role reversal. I can't figure out what that would be. Like he's like having to restrain himself. He's not, I don't know.
Like, he is like, oh, come on, man,
He's
what are you
punishing the
doing?
cop.
I'm just going home. You're a jerk. Why you pull me over, dude? I pay your salary. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, probably, or potentially there's some negative reinforcement happening there too, because when it ends, he walks away from the car. He's like, you know what, guy, just go home. And he leaves. He's like, yeah, not worth it for me. Probably would never happen, but if that happened, then in that moment, he removes the uncomfortable feeling of being yelled at. Probably wouldn't happen, but you know what I mean. Also, if he's in fear when he comes up to the car because of whatever else is happening in the car, he can't see in the car if there's tinted windows, and he's nervous about the neighborhood he's in, da-da-da-da-da-da.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Would it be considered positive reinforcement if the driver is giving him a hard time, he has this pent up frustration and him venting it out, like letting it go on the cop? Is that considered positive reinforcement? Because he had this pent up frustration that he got pulled over, he's letting it loose, and now that he did let it loose, like he doesn't have that pent up. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
does make sense.
Does that?
And that's where we get into the bird flying on the beach thing, where you're like, what if it's fun for him? What if something about this event is fun for one of these things that you thought that it wasn't, right? And that's a tricky thing when you when you look at human stuff in this, right? And that's why behaviorism on its own doesn't solve or it doesn't answer all of our questions about a situation. You're like, yeah, I can put them all here, like, but why and how? And anger and like rage even does feel good sometimes, right?
It feels great.
Sometimes it feels great in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you go home and cry about it later, about your inability to control yourself in public, right? I screamed at the lady at the Royal Farms again. Oh, God. So, yeah, but you're looking at, they're very, very complex. And we don't necessarily know that it's not that complex with dogs, too. That's where the stuff is tricky. I mean, they are individuals. Why do they not have all these feelings? They do have these feelings. They most certainly, the reason why anthropomorphism is like bad, poo-pooed, and like we don't like to imbue human emotions on dogs is not because they don't have emotions. I think that that's part of the trick there. People think it's because we're saying, oh, they don't have emotions. That's not it. It's that I don't know what they are. And I don't know how it feels to be a dog. I know how it feels to be a person and be angry. I don't know how it feels to be a dog and be angry. I could guess. But also there's this framework of language that I have with which to describe how I feel that I know I'm pretty damn sure that my dog doesn't have. And so when one dog is growling at the other dog and this, that, and the feelings that they're having individually, they're having feelings. Hard for me to say what they are, which is why oftentimes we take a behavioralistic approach to those things. And I say, doesn't matter why, this is what we're going to have to do in order to get it to stop or to have it less often, right? And this is what I can do to affect a change on it, I think that might be it on, oh, no, one more. Okay. So, anybody know what this behavior is? All right, well, that's kind of a bummer. All right, this is my favorite behavior in all of competitive dog training. Okay, this is called the object guard. It's actually in French, where in French ring, where they call it the basket, right? So the object guard, and the object is always a basket in French ring. In Mondio ring, the sport that I competed in with my dog, the object could be anything. So instead of your dog guarding a basket like this, it could be guarding a baby carriage, a traffic cone, a seat, weird amalgamations of like kids' toys with pool noodles sticking off of them and crazy stuff. And you'll see like one of those Fisher-Price cars with like the yellow hood, right? You'll see like a dog half in, half out like that, like guarding that from a decoy. And the decoy is the guy in the bite suit, right? So the reason why I believe it is the coolest exercise in all of competitive dog training is because I believe it to be the most difficult to train. The reason why it's the most difficult to train is there are many, many competing pieces of it all in one behavior. And so the goal of the exercise is to have the dog guard the basket in the absence of the handler. So I walk up with the basket and my dog, I put the basket down, I say guard it, and then I leave. And I have to go out of sight completely. I go out of sight completely, and one or two decoys walk in. As the decoys get closer and closer to the basket, the dog is allowed to make a choice at 3 meters in order to go out and bite the decoy. At 3 meters, he's allowed to do that. If he goes out over 3 meters, he loses points. After he bites for 2 seconds, and after he bites, he has to go back to the object. So the dog runs out, he gets a bite, he bites the guy freezes, he goes back to the object, the guy leaves, right? So he has to do that multiple times, and then the decoys switch, new decoy comes in. If you look up object guard on YouTube, you'll find just hours and hours of videos of amazing stuff that was happening. French ring and Belgian ring, Mondio ring, these are all sports that I believe to be the pinnacle of competitive training, and this particular exercise I believe to be the most difficult. I may be wrong, by the way, on the amount of seconds and the amount of meters to the basket. It's been 5 years since I competed. It's also different, I believe, in French ring versus the others. You can find old Belgian ring photos, though, like they must be in the 70s or something like that, of them using a seat with a child in it as the object to guard. Yeah, and you'll see the decoy like roll in on a bicycle and like hold the bicycle in front of him like to the dog and be like, you can't, come get me, and then scoot around, try to go steal the basket. Like it's pretty incredible stuff. And if you think about how they create this behavior, it all comes back to the way we start it with a touchpad. Put a touchpad on the ground, get the dog really addicted to putting their feet on that touchpad, and then start having them track you around in a circle, have them come out for a bite, go back in. It's a complex behavior. But anyway, the dog in this basket right now is probably under the influence of every single quadrant, right? And the anticipation of what could happen if he does a different thing. So he's absolutely experiencing all of these things. So, he's anticipating positive reinforcement. When the guy comes in, he gets to bite him. He's anticipating probably positive punishment if he goes out too early and he gets corrected with the electronic collar or something like that and sent back. Obviously, he's not wearing equipment right now, but that's what happens in the training versus a trial. There's probably instances of negative reinforcement in training where when the dog leaves, he's pressured back on. As soon as he gets back to the item, the pressure's released. And of course, also negative punishment being if you come out too early, you don't get to bite the guy, right? So really complex behavior and super, super cool to watch. I think everybody should watch some. All right. So,
She had a question.
yeah, go ahead.
Where's the fine line of you're gonna screw your dog up so badly that they start resource guarding just everything, and versus more so in Mondio ring, obviously, because in French ring it's always a basket, but in Mondio ring, since it can be anything, I feel like it would be hard to train that without causing just a lot of resource guarding issues, since they would get rewarded for resource guarding certain things.
That's a good question, and there's a pretty simple explanation. Simple for us, all of us in this room. It might not be simple to other people, okay? This dog, I don't know. But my dog, when he was doing this exercise, it's entirely based on obedience and prey drive for the bite suit. So he just knows he can get to the bite suit if he does X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z happens to be stand on this thing. Which is not it's not a true resource guarding thing. Yeah, you would find that some of the people probably in French ring circles maybe early 90s, 80s, something like that, before we had a lot of nuanced marker training stuff, they would probably encourage a little bit more of that guarding, and they liked it when the puppies were just really possessive. But I don't think that's as popular now. Certainly not in the circles that I'm in and that I'm aware of. So I don't think that this dog would be exhibiting really anything that is like resource guarding. It's really just a pattern. The dog knows I'm standing here. When the decoy gets close, I'm allowed to go bite him, and it's allowed to go bite him. That's my favorite thing. I'm not biting him out of defensive aggression or this, that. I'm biting him because I get to go play tug with the guy's leg. That's my favorite, right? So the man is really just it's like a man-sized squirrel the dog gets to go play with and bite and pull on and stuff like that. It's not resource guarding from a human. Which also doesn't mean, though, that these dogs couldn't also have resource guarding issues. They absolutely could, and they probably would be able to. You'd be able to see those things separately. Yeah. Any other questions?
So, extending our question to something people would probably say about people who do protection training relative to that, you're training the dog to bite something on cue, and then you're asked to kind of turn that off. And obviously the idea is you have the amount of control to be able to do that. But some people would argue that, if you don't have the requisite control, it can kind of bleed into other areas where that would be a problem. Would you say that's correct?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can do it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's why I believe that certain sports lend themselves to a culture of doing it wrong. And without without disparaging any particular groups, right? I can say that it does not seem that Mondio ring and French ring or current state of IGP does not seem that they encourage that type of kind of wanton aggression early on, and that that's the better sports, right? So through omission, you could probably figure out the ones that I'm not super excited about, right? But I personally believe that Mondio ring is the way. The thing that is different about Mondio than a lot of these other sports is that by the time they have to do their first trial encompasses like, I think, 5 or 6 obedience exercises, 1 jump, and 5 protection exercises. It's a full set. You are not doing like there's some sports where you can just go out on the field and like hold your dog by the collar and let them go bite somebody, right? And that's part of the sport. That's like the earliest stage of the sport. And for me, it's unethical to teach a dog to bite that doesn't know how to out and doesn't have a perfect recall basically off of a bite. So it's unethical to not use, to have a full program in that situation. So I would never send a dog on a bite that I couldn't recall back verbally if I wasn't attached to them, right? So the way that I bring up a dog is very different from this in that situation, yeah. But I do think that it can be a tightrope if you don't have the right mentors around you. You know, there are people that you can learn from that are gonna steer you in the right direction, and there are people that just have bad information. And some of those people are very successful in the sports too. Yeah. Anything else on this? Cool. All right, so let's play a game. All right. I got a more complex game this time than last time. Okay. So I think it'll take a little bit longer. Hopefully, it's a little bit more fun. Get some people involved in it a little bit. So we're gonna do 2 trials. So there's 2 volunteers. And guests can volunteer first. If no guests want to do it, then I'll pick an employee. And then one is we're going to do it in slightly different, we're going to have a slightly different criteria set for each one. So I'm not going to tell you what the game is, because whoever volunteers has to go outside for a minute while the rest of us decide exactly how to play the game, okay? So we need volunteers before they know what the game is, which is dangerous, I'm sure, but don't worry, nobody's getting hurt, okay? It could be slightly embarrassing, but nobody's gonna get hurt, okay? Anybody want to volunteer off the bat? You, okay? And what was your first name again?
I'm Lauren.
Lauren, okay, Lauren's a volunteer, all right. Anybody else? All right, Rosa? Okay, perfect. All right, so Lauren and Rosa are gonna travel outside for a minute. And Lex, can you just take them just in the kitchen for a sec, and then I'll tell you when we're ready, and I'll explain the game to everybody else. All right, so the game is we're going to direct both of these people, one of which we're going to direct with a harness. So we're just going to put a leash like kind of around their shoulders, okay? One of them is directed with a harness. The other one is directed with a leash, with a slip lead on their wrist, okay? So we know it's going to be much easier to direct the person, I believe, with the slip lead on their wrist, right? But I think that what we should come up with is a pretty complex task. For example, like they have to go over there, they've got to take a cookie and they've got to go deliver it to one of you people. We won't tell them that they have to do that, right? They've got to take a bottle of water, take the top off, give it to somebody. What do you think? Give me an idea.
You could draw on the whiteboard, pick up the marker, open the cap, draw on the whiteboard.
Okay, how about pick up a marker, Oh no. How about go to the whiteboard, erase the whole whiteboard, okay, and then write what?
Wild Acres rocks.
That could take a while. How about like their name?
We're at a heart.
A heart?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. You think you can get them to do it with a harness on? All right, you're gonna hold Rosa on a harness. Okay, and then okay, so we'll have, all right, so that's the task for Rosa, okay, and then what about for Lauren? Another task. What do we think? We could have her rearrange the clipboards. We could have her how about have her collect one of these tethers off the side or multiple tethers.
Stack the bed, take the single and put it on.
That one doesn't fit on the,
That one doesn't fit.
it doesn't fit on those. We could have her put, what else? I don't know. How about fold that chair? How about collect these tethers? These 3 tethers need to be collected, okay? That chair needs to be folded up and put over there, and the tethers need to be attached to that tether.
That's so many things.
I bet you it'll happen a lot faster than you think. Okay, collect these 3 tethers, fold this chair, and then put all of that stuff over there. Okay. And who's going to direct Lauren? You want to do it? Yeah. Or
We're saying a known person versus an unknown person?
it doesn't have to be.
That's another variable, though.
That is, yeah. Pei Ting, you want to do it? You want to direct her?
Literally just direct it.
Yeah, you can tell her when she did a good job afterward. You can say, good. Okay? You want to do it?
Sure.
Okay, Pei Ting will do it, and then it'll be a different, it'll be known versus unknown. Okay.
Use leash pressure and positive reinforcement by the good marker.
Uh-huh. Leash pressure, positive reinforcement by the good marker, and then when they're completely finished, you could say, yes, you're all done.
Okay.
All right? All right. This is a harness, okay? You know how to do it like that? How a leash just goes behind your back like that?
Yeah.
Okay, it's cool. So we'll do that. All right. And
Wait, how do you say? Like.
no. She's gonna help you.
Put it over your shoulder.
There you
Flip
go.
it behind your back.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Okay. And we'll need another clip lead. You gonna use a tether?
Yeah, I can clip it to her leash.
Is there not another?
Goes on now. Oh, what else Cam's is there?
Perfect. All right. We still got some pot ears going on. Here.
Thanks.
Wow, that's a great leash. Look at this great leash.
Wow. Who made that
Amazing.
leash?
Wow, this
Where'd you
is
get
such
it?
a wow. Is this made by Wild American? Oh my gosh.
I don't know, there's no label.
Where did you get this?
I got it at Wild Acres
Oh.
in our store, in the
Oh.
lobby. Wow.
Ding! Come to our Wild Acres office and buy stuff. Yay! Wait, isn't this a timeshare? One stall at a time, baby. Okay, so here's the deal. You have a harness on, okay? And there's a task set for you to do, okay? And it could be any number of things. For example, it could be changing a light bulb. It could be opening and closing a window. It could be lots of things. Neither of the ones I just said, okay? And then you can be directed by pressure. She can kind of move you around, right? You can kind of try to do stuff. She can pull you back, right? She's not going to tell you no or yank on you, I promise. No collar pop. Okay. All right. And if she says good, then you're doing the right thing, and keep doing it. And remember the successive approximation thing too. So if my job was like pick up this thing, for example, pick up that slip lead, and I'm over here, and she was like, good. And you're like, that doesn't mean that you're finished. It means keep kind of trying to figure out, good, 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 okay? All right, cool. What are you telling me?
Stand against the wall there, please.
Okay, got it. All right, I'm against the wall. All right, cool. All right, let's see what you got, Molly.
We timing this?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's time it. She can't speak to you.
Good. Good. Good.
Ah.
I swear I felt something. Good. Good. Good.
We can. I think we can add in there if you want. Yeah. Not. You're not gonna get reinforced if we say Okay.
Good. 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 Or Good.
Good.
Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good. Good.
No talking.
Good.
Yes. Hey. Oh man.
I did not
Good
think that
job.
was gonna be possible.
I didn't either.
Good job.
I was
Yeah.
like, wait.
Nice. All right. Good job. That was cool. Okay, so helped a lot. That's something that we thought of there, right? That's something that we realized there. Helped a lot, right? You did a good job. Yeah. Good job, Molly. That was good. All right. So we have a different task set for Lauren. All right, my handler, Pei Ting. Here is yours. We're gonna put it on your hand, not on your neck. Don't worry. Okay. There we go. And so we can use we can use good,
Okay.
and if you want, you can say no and give her a pop correction on it. Okay. By the way, that took 4 minutes for Rosa, which is...
Good, it's pretty good. 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 No. Good. 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 I like this. Good. 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 All done.
Nice. What?
I said she definitely beat me.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. That one. But they're different tasks. Good job. Thank you. Yeah. That's fun. There you go. So, important part about the game, right? The idea is, again, we go back to this point where people are trying to like put rules on dog training. They're trying to, make it sound like aversives and things like that, or, evil, and kind of demonize people that are utilizing tools in training, like a slip lead or something like that. But in a situation like that, obviously we created it, but it certainly becomes apparent that you can do things really quickly with things like leash pressure, right? And so leash pressure being a thing that is, in that situation, I would consider the leash pressure to be help. So the person, in this case it was a person, the person knew that listening to the leash was going to be their best input for how to get to the reward, which was doing it correctly. So in those situations, I consider the leash to be help more than it is aversive. There are things, obviously, that you can do with a leash that are aversive. If you clarify, though, to the dog that they can access a reward by doing something, then the leash itself and the collar doesn't have to be aversive at every use. And it doesn't have to be predictive of fear, punishment, pain, things like that. It could be predictive of reward. When I put pressure on you like this, you go over there in order to get a reward. When I put pressure like this, you go into the heel position so that you can get access to another reward, right? And it becomes a very salient physical cue that my dog can understand and learn how to work with me better. It is one of the paramount, or is one of the pieces of communication that is most valuable to us in dog training. And I believe that in my system of training and the way that I believe dogs can be trained most clearly, that the leash is my primary tool. I love food, it's incredible, right? But when it comes down to living with our pet dogs and things like that, they're gonna be on leash a lot. They're gonna be walking places. And I like my dog to understand unequivocally that when I apply pressure to the leash, it means something. And that is less effective with something like a harness or even a head harness or things like that, that I can't direct the animal. Your food as a direction is incredible as well, but like we talked about before, it has shortcomings too. Food is not going to convince my dog to not chase a deer. Pressure can. I can save my dog from being, struck by a vehicle or getting lost or this or that, right? I could have my dog just in a more pleasant walking experience. And those things, the benefits of those far outweigh, in my opinion, any kind of fallout or behavioral concerns that you would run into by using pressure in training.